Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I think we've got a great topic for discussion. It is going to be recoil. How is it in an AEG versus how is it in a gas blowback? Specifically the Tokyo Marui MWS Gas Blowback, which is the gas system, versus the Tokyo Marui NGRS Next-Generation Recoil Shock, and this is an AEG, so an electric system. Now I get this question quite a lot. I actually was very big into my NGRS. Like when I started playing again in the US, that is the thing that I would use all the time. I really like recoil. I like recoil when I play airsoft, like for the realism 100%, but also because it's just, it's more satisfying to me playing and actually feeling that recoil as you're shooting. So I would play with this nearly all of the time. A friend of mine actually did some work to this. So full disclosure, this is not real. These are airsoft toys. So if you're reviewing this video, please don't demonetize it again. But full disclosure, this is quite a good side-by-side. This is a gas blowback MWS from Tokyo Marui. This is an MWS, and this is an NGRS, the Next Generation Recoil Shock from Tokyo Marui. However, both of these have had some changes to them. I've redone the trigger in this one. I have got a slightly different bolt. I have redone the rail on it. Similarly, almost identical rail that I've put on this. My friend has done a lot of upgrade work internally and also switched over the battery to Dean's. However, when we're looking at the basics of it, recoil, other things I'm going to go through is reloading. I'm going to go through the FPS and like the consistency and the performance. I'm going to go through how customizable they are and also which platform suits everyone. They're very good and in the same format where I can compare like for like. So hopefully this video is of great value, and if you have any questions when you're watching it, please just put them in the comment section below and I'll try to get to every single comment or question, and I'll try and I've had good experience with both of these. I used to always use this one and now I'm pretty much only gas blowback, so I only use this or variants of it. So first topic is going to be recoil and the shooting experience. Now recoil is something both of these have because that is why you're watching this video. This is obviously a gas blowback system, and that works where you have a gas blowback magazine like this, which is filled with gas out of this valve right here, and also you're filling it with BBs. This really is the power source for the actual replica, and what that is going to do is you're going to charge this handle where it has a bolt. That bolt, every time it reciprocates, is basically going to have a firing pin which touches the gas router at the back of that, releases some gas, that fires the BB, and then also pushes this bolt back and lets it take another BB, and that is going to be effectively working almost like a real firearm. There is no bullet that is actually the power, it really is the magazine. There's no gunpowder, so it's very similar function-wise to the actual real steel. Now it has a spring in here just as a real one does. It's got a buffer in here like a real one does, and it's got a moving actuating bolt and a charging handle like a real one does. The actual bolt locks back into position when you've got an empty mag, so I have to hit this button right here to move that bolt forward. And because of that, this thing is going to recoil a lot heavier. Like that is a lot of mass that is moving backward and forward every time. It's not in any way going to be like a real steel firearm. That obviously has got a lot more kick with an explosion. However, the actual feel of it, you know, without having it as extreme, is going to be fairly similar. This, on the other hand, is electric, and so because it is electric, it does have a gearbox in here. We have to put a battery into it, so that's what's going to be powering the gearbox turning, which has then got a motor which is turning, which has then got a gearbox in here. That gearbox is moving as you're pulling the trigger. That is effectively taking an air cylinder backwards and forwards and pushing air out, which is firing that BB out of the barrel. The other thing it has is a reciprocating weight. Now that weight is powered by electricity or by the motor. So you are getting that recoil as a weight is coming back, but it is not nearly the same amount of recoil as is in the gas blowback system. And so what I'm going to do now quickly is show you. So in order to use this one, we're going to need a battery. As I said, mine has been quite heavily upgraded. So this is what I use in mine. This is a Titan 7.4 LiPo, 3000 milliamp hour. I could run an 11.1 LiPo in here, but the actual rate of fire on this is great. I don't need to do that, and it would put more pressure on the actual gears, which I don't need to do. However, when this comes out of the box, it is coming with the Tokyo Marui SOP mod battery system. That battery system is proprietary to this. It's really like it's not a LiPo lithium polymer battery, so it's not got the same power. And it's not got the same length in terms of how long you can use it. The same, what would I call it? What do I call that? Length of how I'm using it. Anyway, I've had a mind blank, but you're going to have to change the battery a few times if you're using it a lot. So what my friend and what he's done to it is he actually switched that out for a Dean's connector, which just made this a lot easier to use. It made it just a better system where I can just plug in whatever battery I want. However, he did have to change the internals to do that, to put up with the added pressure of it. It also fires at a lot higher FPS than the standard one does out of the box. We'll get to that a bit later. But this is going to be a very similar recoil. The rate of fire might be different, but the recoil is going to be very similar because it is the same weight. So if I'm pulling the trigger in semi here, that is the recoil that I'm getting. Try and give you a... So you can see there is a slight motion of this bolt cover here. It's not actually a bolt. It just retracts with the charging handle and it reveals the Hopup right there. And if I do close the cover, it will open that up. So you do have that, but the recoil is nice. It is there. I'll show you on my shoulder. Like that's me switching into full auto, but that's the recoil. You can see it's moving my shirt. Full auto. Really, really satisfying, really good rate of fire. That's probably going to be slightly faster than how it comes out of the box. But you can tell, sounds good, and it is pretty loud, but there is definitely an element of electricity to that. There is a motor that is moving, and I'd say Tokyo Marui are very, very good at generally building anything, but the amount of actual sound that you get, which sounds like a normal AEG motor going, it doesn't have that, especially because it has that noise over the top, which kind of makes it less. Now, this is your gas system. I've kind of run through it previously. With this, when you've got an empty mag in it like this is, and I retract the bolt is going to hold open. And that is a really nice thing that, again, I'll go through in a little bit. But it means that I know when this mag is empty. So what I'm going to have to do on this is I'm going to have to push down this bolt release. The bolt release, when I hit it, is releasing that bolt. But if I don't do that, then it's just going to hold open because this is an empty mag. This is the semi-auto. Oh, that's not. That's full auto. Semi-auto. So you can see it's very snappy. It's louder. It does have like a little bit of gas release because I just filled this mag and it's a fresh mag. But the trigger is not a stock trigger. I've changed that out. There are some other changes. So your trigger pull is going to be a lot longer, but the recoil is just really, really snappy. Full auto. Okay, I'm running out of gas there. It's not nearly as fast rate of fire, I don't think, but it isn't far off. George is here as well. You want to come sit down? Come on. Sorry, if you guys haven't met George, this is George. He's the dog that was on the channel from a very, very early stage at the start of it. I'll move you here, mate, so everyone can see you. I'm going to have to move him when we do shots, and he hates the sound of dry firing. He's got a bit of a skin condition here right now, if you're wondering what that mark is around his neck. But anyway, the other thing that is going to vary with this is it is going to depend on gas. So the gas that I'm using in this one is this, which is the Swiss Arms 150 PSI. It's the one that is their stronger gas. And they run it, they base it, as you can see here, for more rifles with heavier bolts that are going in there. They do a less powerful one, which you're supposed to use on pistols. But this is kind of your standard green gas, I would say. You know, if you're running duster gas in it, then it's not going to fire as fast and the power is going to be lower. But if you are using, and really these are built for that, however, the quality of the build does mean that Tokyo Marui, you can run green gas in the gas blowback systems, the MWS systems. There are a couple of parts like the nozzle return spring that you may want to change out in the bolt eventually because those can break. But generally this can take green gas fine. So it's going to depend on number one, what kind of gas you're using, and number two, the temperature. Like if it's very cold, then this is liquid gas and it doesn't expand as easily. So it's not going to fire as consistently or as powerful, and the actual recoil is probably going to be less with a lower rate of fire. So that's another thing to bear in mind, is you're going to have to think about that, which you don't necessarily have to do with an AEG, and it should be a lot more consistent. So just again, that's the bolt release. This is full auto. So that's where you're at with the full auto. So that is kind of them generally in their recoil way. More noise, louder, more noise, more recoil, more consistent, less noise. You're not having to like change mags effectively to actually keep the actual replica going. So that's probably, for me, I like more recoil, so I'd go with the gas blowback, but obviously you're not getting the same performance or reliability that you get with an AEG. Okay, so next thing we're going to talk about is reloading in the magazines. Now this I think is a big one for most people. So you have only 30 rounds capacity in this magazine. So these are heavier, quite a bit heavier. Here is a PTS version for the NGRS system. This is going to be quite a bit heavier, so if you're carrying it on your plate carrier, on your gear, you're going to need quite a few of these because they're only 30 round capacity and they're going to weigh more. These are over 100 capacity and they are very, very light. They're your AEG mags. However, both are proprietary. So there are a lot of MWS system copies, companies like Golden Eagle, Double Eagle, who are making stuff at the moment, Guns Modify, and this is actually a Guns Modify mag. They will run this style of mag, but it is not like one M4 gas blowback mag works for everything. Similarly with this, has this kind of proprietary back to these mags. It looks very like a normal PTS EPM, but they make these specifically for the NGRS system. And what this is really good for is that this actually does have bolt lock, which I'll show you shortly. So the mags are different. If you are thinking, hey, I need to keep up with AEG players, then you may well want to think, I can't really use 30 round mags, because even if you've got 8 of these, you're going to go through that pretty quickly compared to just using 3 of these for the same amount. You know, it's something to bear in mind. The other thing is the weight, as I said, the durability. Now, these are a lot more expensive. You're spending $50 to $70 on these. These are probably $20, $30. I haven't looked up the current price of these, but you can get magazines a lot cheaper. And these require a lot more maintenance. Like you've got O-rings in here where the gas fill valves are. Similarly, you need to make sure that your router lips and your BB feed lips and your gas router and your valves are all working, and you need to regularly maintain them. Silicon, make sure they've always got some gas in them, because this really is what's powering your gas blowback. This, on the other hand, is very simple. It is a black plastic shell, effectively, with a spring and a follower, and so you can get BBs into it. If you lose them, if you drop them during game, it's not a big deal. You want to make sure they're not dirty and putting dirt in your mag with the BBs going in. But generally, if you drop this and it lands on those feed lips, like that could really break the mag, and then you're in a pretty bad situation. So those are some of the differences. The other thing is reloading. Now, reloading this is a lot harder than reloading this. With this, I can just literally stick a speed loader in it. With this, I need an adapter, or there's another way for this mag specifically to reload. I'll show you that again. But that's another difference that you definitely want to think about. The other thing is the process of reloading. This is going to take longer. You're going to have to basically put all of the gas in and the actual BBs. It's also going to be more expensive because you're having to put gas in. You're not just charging a battery, and you have to be thinking between each game, I need to make sure it's not just got BBs. I need to make sure it's got gas in there. So it's just a more a longer to kind of prep. Weather dependency is another thing. This is not going to, it's not going to be affected by weather in any way. Like, unless it freezes over and your BBs get frozen inside, which I've never seen that happen. This, if it is cold, you need to make sure that you are warming the mags. You need to make sure that you haven't just freshly filled them. If your mags are sputtering, you need to change the mag. So it might mean that you can only go through half a mag. Then you want to change it and rotate the mag to let one heat up as opposed to being cold. So for me, living in Southern California, it's not the biggest deal. But for people, and where I used to play in the UK in the winter, gas blowbacks can really be not very practical, whereas this will run all year long. It's an electric, it's an electric gun running on a battery. It's not running on gas, which is liquid, which needs that ability to actually expand. Other thing we have is the bolt lock and the realism when reloading. I think for this, the gas blowback is going to win every single time. Now, what is very cool with this NGRS, which I'll go through first, is if I have it from onto semi, if it's empty or if there's BBs in the chamber, it's going to fire and it's going to do that. However, if I put a magazine in that goes to empty, so you can see that's gone there, it is going to stop firing. Now, it's not really that realistic because there's no bolt hold back. However, it does let me know, unlike most AEGs, that I'm out of BBs, so therefore I need to reload. So with that, what you're needing to do is you're needing to remove the magazine. You can see here the follower is there. And I do have a bolt release, which I need to hit after replacing the magazine. I need to hit this to allow it to fire again. So it is something you have to think about. You can't just, like a normal AEG, whack another mag in and pull the trigger. You need to actually put the mag in, remember to hit this, which is sticking out, but it doesn't really make a noise. The bolt isn't released. There's nothing along that. It should fire once. Oh no, it's not going to fire because it's an empty mag with the follower up. Say that the follower is back because that's full of BBs. I've just put it back in, I release this with the button, and then it's going to fire, but then it's going to stop again. So I do think that's cool. You do have bolt kind of release action, but it's definitely not the same. So there is a slight realism, you might say. However, with this, as I've showed you previously, if I've got the actual thing in, if I've charged it, it's going to hold that back. If I release the bolt, it's there. If I fire it, it's going to do that. If I am actually like firing and then suddenly the last BB, and when I release it, I'm pushing the actual thing to get it out. I'm putting a new mag in, and then with the bolt release, that's ready to go. So again, it's very much more realistic. If I've got it charged and I want to release the action, you can hear the trigger going there. There's just nothing to hit. So again, much more realistic. What else is there? So I think that's probably it for the reloading and realism. Hop-up adjustment. So that's another thing that differs on these. Hop-up adjustment on this is a lot easier. So I'm pulling back this fake charging handle to pull back the bolt cover. As you can see there, you've got a rotary hop-up up and down. So if I am firing it and suddenly I need to adjust the hop-up, I can literally just pull this back, rotate this, and I'm good. So really easy to do. This, on the other hand, the hop-up is actually up underneath here. So really what I need to do is to remove the upper and the lower, take them apart, and then I need to pull this bolt back with the charger, and then my hop-up adjustment is right there in the back. I don't know if you can see that. It's right here. So there's a little wheel there, which means every time I want to adjust it, I need to effectively open the actual replica and then make sure that I can adjust it, then close the replica, fire it, then open it, then adjust it. So there's definitely a difference with the hop-up adjustment, and I really like the ability to do that on the NGRS. Okay, so we're going to move on to FPS and consistency. Now, because this is an electric blowback, effectively, the consistency should be a lot better. Like with this, you've got the gas, which is, you know, coming out the mag. And as the gas gets colder, or as you get less actual gas in the mag, the FPS will probably drop off quite considerably. I know with this mag, actually, I was expecting us to have a longer amount of fire coming out of it on that full auto before it did that. So I might try this mag and then try it on another one if it's not working properly. But generally, this is going to be the same amount of air being pushed out by a motor every single time. So the consistency on this should be a lot better. This should be less good, but we'll see that in the chrono now when we do it. The other thing to bear in mind, though, as well, is that when this comes out of the box, it's normally firing at about 285 FPS. Now, I've done upgrades to this, so it should be firing at just under 400, but that takes a lot of work to do it, and you really need a tech who knows what they're doing. It's not like teching a regular AEG where you got the same kind of same gearbox, the same motors that are going in there. So you definitely need to make sure that you have someone doing this who knows what they're doing, and the chances of it going wrong after you've done tech work and upgrade work is a lot higher. So if you are looking at this, and I'll go through this at the end, but this would be great as a CQB gun, having it as an actual full outside competing with 400 FPS AEGs if you're in the US may not be something that you're that keen on. What I do know is that the range on it's actually really good considering the lower FPS, but that is going to be around that 285 mark. This is going to fire around that 400 mark. Again, gas dependent on what you are. Also, this is the same gas that they do for pistols. So if you're looking at that, that is what they're going to do as pistols. So we're going to try and just do a quick chronograph. So what I'm going to do actually quickly is just put some BBs in this. What I'm going to use for this is just these Barra EMG 0.2 grams. So normally I would not fire 0.2 grams out of these in a game. I use 0.32s pretty much in both of them. I could probably go a little bit higher on the gas blowback than I can on the NGRS, but that is that's 3.2s are great on both of them, so that's fine. So with this AEG mag, all I'm doing is just putting this little bit in here. I'm just pushing down and I'm loading some BBs in the top. Very, very easy. You can do it very quickly. And there's my BBs loaded up. And then with this gas blowback mag, this is a guns modify, so it won't come with the MWS out of the box, but they are really good mags. And what I can do is remove the base plate here, and then I can push up through here, and this is gonna basically push this bit up. And what I'm gonna do is put a few rounds in here, again with the speed loader. I'm just gonna sit them like this. And I'll do a review on these magazines on the channel as well. So if you're interested in them, let me know. And then I'm just going to push this back up into place. I could do that a lot easier if I was doing a full mag. And then once that's in there, I just push this to release the spring and close that base plate, and we're good to go. Just make sure we got gas in there still. Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like this mag's not loading gas properly. So we may have to switch it out, but we'll see. So, George, I'm going to move you out of the way because you're going to hate this. What I'm going to do is get this Ace Tech chronograph right here, and then I'm going to put on my very cool Pit Viper ballistic glasses so that we get to see. These are very dirty as well. My kid, I think, might have been messing around with these. And then we're going to test out both of these different replicas and just see what the consistency is like, what the FPS is like, but then also what the consistency FPS and also what the rate of fire is also like as well. So I'm going to take this mag. This is the standard EPM one for the Tokyo Marui NGRS. And I am going to hope this chrono, this is an Ace Tech chrono, I've got it set to 0.2s, this is what we're firing. And I'm gonna, so that's 389 is the first one, 387, 385, 388, 389, 389, 394, 393, 395. So that was firing between 383 and 395 on all of those rounds. If we're doing the rounds per second, let's see what that's doing. So that's looking there at about 18 rounds per second is what we're doing there. And then I'm getting that bolt hold back, and that seems like a bit fast at 18 rounds per second. To be honest, rounds per second isn't going to matter as much because this isn't stock. It is running kind of an upgraded insert. So that is me right there with that. So that is very, very consistent, I think, as you can see. And with the upgrade, it's running at 380 to 385 to 395. So about 10 FPS difference. Now, with this guy, hopefully the mag's performing well. But what I'll do is I will stop that one. We'll start it again. So I'm going to load this one up. I'm going to put it onto semi-auto. And this is... That's wrong. Okay, for some reason I'm not getting it feeding. Three, 4, 2. 3, 4, 2. 3, 4, 1. 3, 5, 2. Okay, so that was actually not too bad. It was 340 to about 355 was kind of the spread there. For some reason, it didn't feed the first couple of BBs, and that is something you're going to come across. But that is firing actually less powerful than my current NGRS. This is also going to be bolt dependent. It's going to be, you can get NPAS systems, which are little like valves within the actual nozzle. So you can tune that up and down. So that for me at 350 right now is kind of perfect because it allows me to play inside with it as well as outside. But that is an aftermarket bolt. But you can see there, I was actually surprised. The consistency on that was pretty good. I would say generally it's not going to be quite up to that level. Okay, so that's the FPS and consistency. You know, again, it's always going to be better with this one. Recoil's not as good, but that's that. Next one we're going to do is customizability. Now, the gas blowback is a lot more customizable. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference when it comes to things like sights and PEC units and switches. It's going to have the same rails. In fact, I've got HAL rails on both of these. It's going to have the same rails. You can change the flash hiders similarly. So externals wise, it's not going to be as bad. However, if we're looking at kind of the AR based models, this is basically a buffer tube which works like a real steel firearm. So I can change out this buffer tube. I can remove it. I can put a different one on. And similarly with this stock, I'm not going to take it off now, but with this stock, I can do the same. I can put on a different version of a stock if I want. This thing, you can do that to an extent, but it is not going to be as customizable, mainly because this stock tube does not have a buffer spring in it in the same way, and it's got wiring that's going to run the entire way down the tubes. There needs to be a gap in the end here, and it is going to have space to put your batteries in. And so that's a big one, I think, is not... There are some different versions of these you can get. You can change them out. You can make them different, but you're going to have to pick the proper thing. With this, you can literally just put real steel firearm parts on it. If you're trying to mimic or do a build, a lot easier to do that with this. Other thing is the pistol grip. So with this, I can put on a real steel one. These both are real steel. Daniel Defense, and that's not how it comes out of the box again, but it doesn't really make any difference for the performance. It's just for comfortability, ergonomics, and the look of it. This one here is one with an actual motor in the bottom, so you need to get a grip that is built for an airsoft gun and is going to fit the actual airsoft gun that you're fitting. The motor head needs to come up through here to engage in the actual gearbox, so you're not going to be able to get a real steel one. You can get some very cool different ones. I don't really like this style, but this actually fits quite well for some reason on this actual replica. But that is something that you probably want to think about. Again, you want to do full customization. you're going to be able to do it with a gas blowback. You're not going to be able to do it with an AEG in the same way. But again, there's a lot of aftermarket parts that you can do. What else are we going to talk about? Trigger customization, another thing where you can get some triggers that you can do on AEGs. I don't know about the NGRS. With this, you can buy a whole load of different trigger boxes. For instance, in this one, I've got the Toxicant MWS trigger box. You can see there it's purple. And that allows me to tune the trigger pretty much however I want. So how much load I've got on it, how much travel I have. And I literally have it set up here where there's just no movement. And there's just a very, very tiny brake with no trigger movement. So I can do that with this. Very easily, or easily you need to know what you're doing, but by opening it and just putting different parts in. Do you want to come sit down again? You go, George. You want to sit there? We'll get him back, sorry. I think he was getting a bit lonely over there and his bed was over that way, so we'll bring him back in. Hopefully you guys enjoy looking at him instead of my face. So that is something that you've got to bear in mind for sure. It's a fully mechanical trigger with the mechanical trigger with the gas blowback. It's an electric trigger with the NGRS. Hopup customization as well. The NGRS is easier to actually adjust. It's going to be fairly similar in terms of install and changing. But I know gas blowbacks pretty well, and you're not having to mess around with, oh wait, which wires are doing what. Bye, George. So that's another thing. Price wise on these, they're actually basically about the same. So you're paying about $550 for this one. And again, about $550 for this one. This does feel more realistic. It feels more balanced, more heavyweight, but generally they're both built out of metal. They both feel really good in the hand. I changed out the actual grip on both of them, but it's that's another thing actually, is I think with the MWS system, you can't change it out for real steel hand grips. You need an adapter handrails, but on a lot of gas blowbacks you can go real. With this, again, you need to have something which fits the actual replica for the NGRS. So price wise, they're basically the same, $550-ish. The gas blowback's going to end up costing you a lot more money because of the magazines. When these are all $50, $60 and you need at least 8 of these, whereas these are 30, 40 max, and they're taking 100 rounds and you maybe only need 2 or 3. These definitely are cheaper to run. On top of that is the gas. You're having to buy a ton of this stuff to keep that thing running, whereas with this you just need to charge the battery and you're all good. If you've got a LiPo, you probably need 1. If you've got the regular standard the lithium ion batteries, then you may need 2 or 3, but they're not going to cost a huge amount of money. It's probably $30 similarly to get those. And maintenance again on this is going to be a lot more. You're going to have to lube things, make sure everything's running smoothly. A lot more things go wrong in a gas blowback, so you need to think about that too. So longevity, that's going to play into that. This is going to be a lot more reliable just left in that way. So to finish up, we're going to say who are the people who should buy both of these. So the NGRS. So this, in terms of the player that it's best for, it's someone who wants reliability and the ease of using an AEG with some of the realism of the recoil. They want consistent performance, and it's going to be all year long. You're not going to have season dependent. And then you also have someone who also doesn't want to deal with gas issues, and also someone who wants to keep that competitive edge. They don't necessarily want to say, hey, I can't have 100 round magazines and I can't push full auto all the time I want. If you want that kind of performance of an AEG, with the NGRS, the only thing really is going to be the FPS that you need to play around with. But generally, that kind of person who's looking to play, they want something that's going to work everywhere and not be too much of a headache. That is going to be your person that buys the NGRS. The person that buys the gas blowback MWS, that's going to be someone who really wants realism over performance. Like, these can perform very well and you can do a lot to them to make them work really well. But realistically, it's never going to perform with the same consistency as one of those, and each shot after shot with that could be identical. With this, it's not going to have that same effect. So they want realism, they want the bigger recoil without having that performance. More of an immersive shooting experience with that recoil, realistic reloads, a louder sound, and they want to be able to customize the rifle how they want. They don't want to be, you know, restricted in that way. Generally, I would say it's probably more experienced players who you know, have done the AEG stuff and just want something a bit different, and probably older people in general who have a bit more money to spend and don't mind wasting money on gas, parts, more mags, etc. And finally, I would say someone who lives in a warmer climate. If you live in a cold climate, this is not going to be amazing. The MWS system from Tokyo Marui specifically is very good with the gas, like conserving gas and performing in cold environments, especially their AKM, AKX, the AK lines that they do. But it's, you know, if you're in a cold environment, it's going to be tough. So that's going to be something to just bear in mind. So that's probably the people. So to conclude, just to kind of go through, recoil wise, gas blowback is going to be a lot bigger. NGRS is good recoil, but it's not going to have nearly the same as a gas system. FPS consistency, the NGRS is going to be better for that side, as well as being like less expensive, less fragile mags. You know, it's going to be just a more stable platform in general. Sound-wise, the gas blowback is going to be the one. Price and upgrades, they're going to be the same to buy straight away, but this is going to cost you a lot more money, the gas one. So that's something also. And who should buy what? Probably the NGRS for most players who want things that are going to work all the time, and a gas one for realism, you know, the people who play Milsim West, MSW, that kind of things. So I'm going to finish with that, guys. Sorry if the video was pretty long, but I would love to know from you, which one would you choose? Would you go for the gas blowback or would you go for the electric blowback? And if you could write that in the comments down below. And please also let me know, did you find this interesting and useful? Because I will definitely make very similar videos if you think that's the case. Thank you so much, guys. For me also, it's gas blowback, just to finish with that. Used to be NGRS, now it's gas blowback. I like the realism. That's kind of what I'm going to leave you with. Thanks, guys. Speak to you very soon. Goodbye.